Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Chiefly Football Podcast. I'm the underqualified host, Kinloch, and joining me today virtually from the heart of Chiefs Kingdom is Dave. We're here to review the Chiefs' 42-30 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles this past Sunday. But before we get into that, Dave, how are you doing?
Doing great, Kinloch. It had been a while since we woke up on a Monday with a Chiefs victory. 2 weeks sounds like a while. But it was refreshing nonetheless to remember what a win when we've been as spoiled as we are, and immediately think that the world is caving in after two back-to-back losses when you start the season 4-0 the previous 2 years. So yeah, it was a fun game. It was a track meet.
Yeah, it was a good game. Fun to watch. I think you're still kind of nervous watching this game just because of the results of the first two. You knew that the Chiefs hadn't been playing their best and that even teams that the Chiefs should be beating can still, pull off the upset. So even normally when the Chiefs have double-digit leads, I'm, changing the channel or looking somewhere else. I'm not as locked in because you know that the game's over. But this time it's still some questions there. So
no lead is too safe for this defense is what you're alluding to.
Yes, that is the concise way of putting that. Thank you. So not to give too much of a spoiler, but what are your thoughts just after a couple days watching that game? I know that you weren't too high or too low, I guess, after those two games. Obviously there were some concerns, but did this Chiefs win for either of those losses, or do you feel a little bit better about the Chiefs, or did you have any overall thoughts about the Chiefs moving forward because of this game?
I think we all right now just want to see progress. And the progress was evident on the offensive side. It's amazing what happens when you don't turn the ball over, and how prolific this offense is. We saw the run game continue to develop in large part because of the way the offensive line was blocking. Those holes were awesome. And, for all the CEH haters, unless you're Barry Sanders, an offensive line is pretty helpful in being successful. And this offensive line is just doing awesome. But, on the flip side, I still have real concerns on the defensive side. As we talked before we taped this, some of the garbage points that were scored by Philadelphia, and even a turnover that Andy didn't challenge, might have made a little bit difference with the score. But when Jalen Hurts throws for 380 yards or whatever it was, which I think somebody noted was more, he'd only thrown for 300 yards twice in his collegiate career. So this wasn't, we weren't getting carved up by a prolific passer, like we were facing the week before. So that really causes me concern. And again, I mean, we had 2 sacks by Michael Dana, but I didn't feel like they were, it was a sack. It didn't feel like somebody just blew past their man and we were dominating up front. One of his was just a relentless sack that Hurst just held on to the ball way too long. So, yeah. So in a nutshell, the offense is doing exactly what we think they do without turnovers. And I didn't see a whole lot of improvement from the defensive side that made me think that they're, I just didn't see it. I didn't, I still think they're still trying to figure things out over there. What were your impressions?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, the Chiefs, this was the first not the first game. I think you said before the show that was this the fourth game that you'd seen, or you had seen that this was the fourth game in history, NFL history, that no team had punted in the game.
Yeah, that there was no punts. And again, I don't know if that included playoff games like the Chiefs Broncos games, but yeah, that was a graphic that I saw. Um, which, if you think about it, I guess that's pretty hard to do. Um,
Yeah,
so,
that's impressive for offenses, unless you're turning the ball over 4 or 5 times, and that's why
right.
you're not punting.
But I
So
think it was what, 942 yards between the two offenses.
yeah, well, and so you saw the difference. I mean, both teams put up a ton of yards, and so that's where I would say that we are seeing at least a little bit of improvement from this defense in that they forced Philadelphia to settle for 3 field goals in this game, whereas the Chiefs scored touchdowns on 6 of their 7 drives. The one drive that they didn't score a touchdown was because of an interception, which that if he hadn't thrown that interception, it probably still would have been a punt. So I don't think that drive would have ended up in a touchdown regardless. But um, the efficiency that the Chiefs offense showed was the difference in this game in being able to put up touchdowns, not settle for field goals, where the defense actually forced the Eagles um, to kick some field goals in this game. So I think that's some different. We talked about that for the first couple of weeks, how atrocious the Chiefs have been in the red zone defensively, and we saw some good things from them this game. The only caveat, really, when just evaluating this game in general, is that the Philadelphia Eagles aren't. They're probably, I would say, in the they're probably average NFL team right now in the 12 to 16 range of quality teams in the NFL, and the 3 teams that we played previously were much better. And then the team we're going to be playing next week, the Buffalo Bills, are a top 4 team. So we'll be able to evaluate the improvement of the offense and defense a little bit better against the Bills, I think. And then even after the Bills, there's 3 kind of easier teams that we'll see. So um, I don't know how much we can take away from this game, but like you said, we're looking for improvement, and I think that the defense and the offensively, we just didn't have as many turnovers, and we were much more efficient. And then defensively, we were able to get some stops in the red zone. And I mean, I think that was pretty much it for the defensive side. I think they had 2 opportunities to force turnovers. One, Chris Jones couldn't pick up the fumble, bounced it off the referee's head back to himself, and still couldn't pick it up right before halftime. So we could have gotten could have gotten some more points there. And then, like you referenced earlier, the fumble that we forced at the goal line and recovered, and then we didn't challenge it, and Eagles ended up getting a touchdown. So some signs that the defense is doing some things right, even if it's not necessarily showing up on the stat sheet.
One other concern as I was thinking about that though is, one of the issues that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, which is concerning, and Philadelphia did it in their first couple of drives, and that was hurrying up to the line of scrimmage. I'm not understanding why this defense can't get their play calls in. And I mean, this is fundamental, right? This is year 3 of Spagnuolo's defense, and most of these players have played in this defense. And for other teams to game plan and scheme around capitalizing on that inability to communicate, which ultimately puts people in the wrong places, is, there's something not right about that, isn't there? I mean, it's one thing for Ben Neiman to be too slow to get to the hole to make the tackle, but we're talking the basics of just getting the play call out there and people in position. So is that, and we're, yeah, I mean, do you see that as a concern that doesn't make sense?
Yeah, well, that's on coaching. And I think it is a concern just because Spags has been here for a few years and most of the defense has been here. So they should know what their responsibilities are. I do think, I mean, I don't know, maybe he's adding some wrinkles on the defensive side or just switching things up that the team still has to kind of work through. I think the good news is, or the good thing would be that those things are fixable. Like it's not a lack of talent, like you said. I mean, it's easier to get in the playbook and study or study more film than it is to boost your speed. It's not Madden
Right.
where you can just
It's just weird that I just
yeah.
don't understand.
But I mean, I mean the defense. I mean, I don't know. We kind of referred to the Patriots a lot during their runs. I mean, they always kind of struggled at the beginning of seasons defensively, and Bill Belichick's an elite defensive coach. Um, and maybe he has a more. I think Belichick probably asks a little bit more of his players, a lot of his players, but I think Spags asks a lot from several of his players, especially the the Niemans, the Sorensens, Matthew,
Chris Jones as a defensive end.
right? So I think there's still some learning that's taking place, and that's something that can be fixed and worked on throughout the season. Um,
Yeah,
but
I don't. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just we don't see that on the offensive side.
no, but we have Patrick Mahomes on the offensive side.
Yeah, so we do not have any all pros on the. I mean, Chris Jones when he's a defensive tackle, but yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, on the
we
offensive
don't
side, we
have
still
anybody making big bucks on the defense side that everybody else wishes they had.
right. I mean, I think Matthew, but yeah, I
Yeah,
think
him right now is not grading well as a safety.
I still think other teams would take him.
Oh, yes, they would take it for his leadership skills. So
Yeah, I just
yeah,
think that on the defensive
but
side,
we don't really have a playmaker on the defensive side.
right. Yeah, and Chris Jones used to be that force, but he's not. He hasn't been that guy since they moved him outside. And even this game, they actually had him playing inside more, and he still just wasn't as effective as. I mean, didn't have any sacks and had few pressures, so um, still not providing the impact that we're expecting when we're paying him that much money. Frank Clark didn't play. We're paying him a ton of money. Um,
But he'll
but
be back for this game. So
yep, he'll be back for this game. And we also got some news that Willie Gay has returned to practice and probably won't be active for this coming game, but might be active for the following game. And that's something that we've all been looking forward to and seeing Willie Gay out there with his athleticism paired with Bolton. Um, he'll probably be on a pitch count for the first week or two while he still gets his legs back under him. But that's definitely something that we're excited to see because this season we still haven't had the full 11 starters that we were hoping and expecting to see this season with Clark missing games, Matthew missing a game, and Willie Gay out. So.
And Andy talked about that in his press conference today that that they're counting on a healthy defense to be part of that improvement that takes place.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid expectation. The only thing is, injuries are part of football and part of the season. So if you're a really good team and you're a team that expects to make a Super Bowl run, you have to be able to win games despite injuries. So we'll see how.
And we can depth wise on the offense, but not on the defense.
Right. Well, it just puts more pressure on the offense to carry the team. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. That's one of the takeaways that I had, and it was mentioned during the broadcast. The difference in the offense's approach and their game plan coming into this game versus the game plan that we've seen basically forever with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They're always looking for the big plays. I was extremely frustrated in the Super Bowl because I felt like they were trying to do that the entire game, and we had a terrible offensive line who couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes and give him enough time to try to get those explosive plays, and I just never saw any changes to that game plan throughout the Super Bowl. So that was like the most frustrating thing that I took away from that Super Bowl game. And then you see that in the first couple of weeks where, maybe it works a little bit in game one, but the other two, the Ravens and the Chargers, and then again the Eagles are playing two high safeties, trying to keep everything in front of them, not giving up the big play. And the Chiefs, the last 2 weeks, were still trying to force those big plays, and instead a lot of those plays led to turnovers. This week, a different approach, running the ball. CEH went over 100 yards. The Chiefs hit 200 yards total rushing, which I don't know the last time that happened.
Probably the
And then
Bills game last year.
maybe I don't know if we hit 200 though, but yeah, that was definitely the big game, and it was that same thing that Bills wanted to take away all the big plays, and the Chiefs were willing to take what the defense gave them. So that was something that I was really encouraged to see, is that the Chiefs were a little bit more methodical in the way they moved the ball, which is different than how they've been previously, and that's hard because I've talked about this before, how frustrated I was that they were always able to hit fifth gear and play and score a lot of points quickly, but they couldn't play in third gear and be more methodical and run the ball and run clock, things like that. And so it was great for me to see the running game, but also Patrick Mahomes taking shorter plays, and even some of those plays led to more explosive gains because we got the ball in the hands of our playmakers.
Yeah, and one of the things I love. I mean, I love the passing game, but I always like to see a really nice change up with the run game, because if you can be multidimensional, then that really makes you unstoppable. And but it's a challenge, right? Because as I watch the Raiders, especially the first part of the Raiders Chargers games, their defenses were getting stops early on, both defenses. And I think at one point, the Raiders had possession 5 times, and I don't even think it was midway through the second quarter, where the Chiefs had 8 possessions all of the Eagles game, as a result of the run game. And I think one of the challenges that when we see them pushing the ball down the field and forcing it isn't just because that's what they want to do. It's also if they have legitimate concerns about their defense, then they feel that they need to score quickly to put pressure on the opposing offense and make sure that they get the ball as often as possible to score. So it was nice, it's kind of it's a challenge when you have 8 possessions and score on 7 of them. And like you said, you're still not completely sure that you're going to be able to close out the game. And yeah, so it's just,
Yeah,
there's always more than just, it's always, why are they doing what they're doing? If you're going to slow down the game, the defense has to step up.
yeah, I get what you're saying, and I know that you've got to go, so we're probably going to wrap this up. But I do think on the offensive side, it's not about time of possession or how long you have the ball or how quickly you score or even how many possessions you get, because most of the time, unless there's turnovers, both teams have the same amount. It's how efficient you are and how if you're able to put up touchdowns. If the Chiefs, regardless of how bad their defense is, if they take 15 minutes on a drive and it ends with a touchdown, it doesn't matter how bad their defense is, because the only thing the other team can do is score a touchdown or kick a field goal, or the defense happens to stop them. So I don't think the Chiefs have to score quickly. If anything, that's hurt the Chiefs, I think, in the past, where the Chiefs score quickly and the defense is out there for 10 minutes, and then the Chiefs go out and score quickly again, and then the defense is out there for another 10 minutes. So I think it's good that the Chiefs are able to play two different kinds of games well. If they're trying to slow the ball down and they just can't score touchdowns because they're just not used to playing a slower paced game, then there's a problem. But if the Chiefs are able to still be efficient, and they can do that if they're able to run the ball effectively. If they can run the ball effectively, and we know how good Mahomes and our receivers are, or Hill and Kelsey are, Um, I don't think they should have a problem putting up points, or they shouldn't have to worry about the defense as much if they're still putting up touchdowns and not turning the ball over. I think that's the biggest thing. Is it's just not turning the ball over and scoring touchdowns.
Right. Well, you just have to be perfect, which they almost were. I don't know that there's another offense. Really, there's not another offense that's going to go out there and score 7 out of 8 possessions unless they're playing the Chiefs. Then all bets are off. And I think that's what's so frustrating is, and we're counting on, the Chiefs. We just need to see some improvement and get some breathing room. We'll go into depth in our next one, but frankly, I'm really concerned about the Bills coming to town. Now,
Yeah.
I get that they played lesser opponents, but they shut both of them out, which is still a feat in the NFL, and they put up points. To me, they are the best team in the AFC right now, and they want their shot, just like Lamar Jackson did, just like the Chargers did. And I'm sure that they feel the Chiefs are vulnerable. So we'll talk more about that in our preview. But yeah, that will be the test.
Yeah, that'll be the marker, I think, especially for our defense. Our offense works cut out. It's just don't turn the ball over and then just play your game. Our offense is elite. It's the best offense in the NFL when they're not turning the ball over. So I think they have the capability of being as close to perfect as any other team, can be with our defense. It's just hoping that the defense gets better and the Bills are going to be a tough test. Athletic, strong arm quarterback, good weapons, solid offensive line. So, yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us for this review of the Chiefs get right game against the Eagles. Andy Reid celebrating his 100th win with the Chiefs. First coach ever to get 100 wins with 2 different teams.
Amazing.
Congratulations, Andy. A week after going to the hospital too. So, tough week for him. Going back to Philadelphia against his former team. I'm sure this was a special victory and a special occasion for Coach Reid. But look forward to our next podcast where we preview the Chiefs-Bills Sunday night football game. Probably going to be coming out tomorrow or Friday. So keep an eye out for that. And again, thanks for joining us. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Chiefly Football. And then you can also find the videos on YouTube. So signing off for Dave, I'm Kinloch, and we'll talk to you guys later.